Donald Trump is very likely the Republican nominee for president, but he's more than just a candidate for office. He was actually the president before. People seem to have weirdly blocked it out, maybe because the whole thing was so traumatizing. But I assure you, he was there. He has an actual record. In that record, he did everything in office as president to undermine NATO, falsely painting it as a kind of protection racket in which the members were not paying him enough tribute. Trump even tried to get the U.S. to leave the alliance it founded altogether, according to multiple counts from people inside his administration. He also did everything he could to encourage Russian aggression against NATO. He famously sided with Russian President Vladimir Putin over his own intelligence agencies in public about Russian sabotage of the 2016 election. In that context, what he said this weekend was fully in line with his thinking, though unhinged even by his standards.
One of the presidents of a big country stood up and said, well, sir, if we don't pay and we're attacked by Russia, will you protect us? I said, you didn't pay? You're delinquent? He said, yes, let's say that happened. No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay. You got to pay your bills.
Now, first of all, it almost certainly didn't happen whenever he gives you like a yes sir story. But that aside, I was a little surprised to see several major news outlets fail to cite an obviously relevant piece of context, which is that Vladimir Putin is desperate to reach a negotiated settlement to steal a big chunk of Ukraine and is counting on the Republican Party in the U.S. to essentially aid him by cutting off aid to the beleaguered army of Ukraine, which is quite literally running out of ammunition. You know who did point out that context? President Biden, in brief remarks today that called for funding Ukraine and blasted Trump's comments.
Can you imagine a former president of the United States saying that? The whole world heard it. The worst thing is he means it. No other president in our history has ever bowed down to a Russian dictator. Well, let me say this as clearly as I can. I never will. For God's sake, it's dumb, it's shameful, it's dangerous, it's un-American.
And of course, Putin made an enormous investment in Trump personally, one that has been paying enormous dividends. He personally authorized a Russian operation to support a, quote, mentally unstable Donald Trump in the 2016 presidential election, as The Guardian put it. And now Trump effectively runs the Republican Party and is, for all the world, acting like a man who wants to continue pleasing his patron, Putin. He is going to do what he can to not only destroy the NATO alliance, but to make Ukrainian resistance to Russian aggression impossible. And Trump's comments are reverberating around the world, sending Europeans into equal parts rage and panic. Here at home, the Republican Party base is under Donald Trump's thumb. The Senate just overwhelmingly passed a bill to send military aid to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson says his Trumpy majority is probably not even going to take the bill up for a vote in Congress. Just think about the incentives Putin had in 2016, the lengths that he went to help get Trump elected, criminal sabotage of an American election. We've talked at length about how desperate Trump is to get back in the White House in hopes of eluding jail time and not, possibly dying in prison. Think about the stakes for Putin now as his war drags on and he desperately wants to end it with a Russian victory. And he has this one figure in his pocket singing his tune to half of America's two-party system. Which is to say, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin need each other. With a coincidence of interests they hope will be stronger than NATO, stronger even than American democracy.